Cuba is a tropical paradise, vibrant with culture and rich in history. Picture this place, but with its citizens waiting outside banks and scrambling for essential needs. Cuba, a place boasting breathtaking beaches, lush landscapes, and a rich history that lures tourists worldwide. But beneath these enticing sights, a contrasting reality exists. Here, the thriving tourism industry, seen as the Cuban economy's lifeline, coexists with ongoing economic hardship. Visualize being a tourist, basking in the sun on a most beautiful Cuban beach, sipping a mojito. Meanwhile, locals line up at banks before dawn, hoping to access their wages. The issue isn't just about waiting, but if there's enough cash to distribute. While tourists indulge in native delicacies at luxury resorts, Cubans contend with essential food shortages. Shops' shelves are frequently empty, and lines at markets extend down the block. So how did this lively island nation, famed for its music, classic cars, and esteemed cigars, arrive here? The answer is rooted in a complex web history, politics, and economics that has shaped modern Cuba. But Cuba's story doesn't stop at the beautiful beaches and vintage cars depicted in travel brochures. It's also about its inhabitants, known for their resilience and resourcefulness, traits often displayed in times of hardship. As we peel back the layers of this Caribbean paradise, we encounter the paradox of Cuban life. A place where the allure of a tourist paradise coexists with the stark realities of its citizens. This dichotomy is ignored, revealing a tale of struggle and resilience often overlooked. With each layer peeled back, we get a clearer understanding of Cuba, a place where paradise and hardship coexist. So, in the midst of this Caribbean paradise, there lies a tale of struggle and resilience that often goes unnoticed. Let's delve deeper. To the outside world, Cuba often appears as a nation frozen in time, a treasure trove of vintage cars and colonial architecture. Often, this is the only side of Cuba that is visible to the world. A delightful spectacle of vibrant salsa rhythms and refreshing mojitos, Cuba attracts tourists from far and wide. These visitors are mesmerized by the classic cars, the colonial buildings, and the lush resorts that dot Cuba's picturesque landscape. They travel through time, reveling in the island's old-world charm and nostalgic allure. However, there's more to Cuba than what meets the eyes of the tourists. Beneath its enchanting surface lies a contrasting reality that is often unseen and unacknowledged. This reality is not about the luxuries offered to the tourists, but about the struggles of the people who call this island their home. The same island that is a paradise for the tourists is a stage that showcases the harsh realities of life for the locals. Every day they face poverty, government control, and shortages of basic necessities. Each morning, while the tourists wake up to the sound of the ocean, the locals wake up to the uncertainty of their daily needs. For the locals, the sight of long queues outside banks even before they open is as common as the vintage cars we see in postcards. This is a stark contrast to the image of Cuba seen by the tourists who are often unaware of the daily struggles faced by the locals. The irony of Cuba's landscape is that while thrives, the locals grapple with shortages. The government reaps the benefits of the booming tourism industry, but this wealth rarely trickles down to the residents. The locals contribute to the charm of the island, but their efforts often go unnoticed and unappreciated. In the face of these challenges, the spirit of the Cuban people is admirable. They show resilience and determination, creating a sense of community that binds them together. This resilience is a significant part of the Cuban identity, one that is often overlooked in favor of the more picturesque aspects of the island. So the next time you see a vintage car cruising down the cobblestone streets of Havana or a beautifully preserved colonial building, remember that Cuba's reality is multifaceted. It's not just the picture-perfect postcard imagery, but also the struggle, resilience, and of the locals define it. In the midst of the vibrant salsa music and mojitos, there's a side of Cuba that remains hidden from the tourist's eyes. Now let's take a closer look at the daily struggles of the Cuban people. With the break of dawn, as the rooster crows, a typical day in Cuba commences. However, it's not as remarkable as one might imagine. Before the sun's first rays peek through, the locals are already in long lines outside banks, ready to face another challenging day. Their unwavering determination is a testament to their resilience. Here in Cuba, the struggle for basic necessities is a harsh reality that is difficult to ignore. Imagine not having easy access to everyday items like milk, bread, or even soap. These are not extravagances, but basic necessities that are surprisingly difficult to come by. The local stores frequently lack supplies, leaving the citizens confronted with scarcity on a regular basis. The question arises, why is this happening? The root of the problem lies in the Cuban government's authoritarian control. A large portion of the citizens' earnings is taxed heavily, restricting their ability to provide for their own basic needs. Odd contradiction that those who sow the seeds and reap the harvest struggle to provide food for themselves. The government, through its rigid regulations and exorbitant taxes, places an enormous burden on its people. The hard-earned money of the residents is siphoned off rather than being reinvested in the economy, leaving the average Cuban in a state of constant struggle. Despite the adversity, the resilient spirit of the Cuban people refuses to shatter. The reality is harsh. Picture stark contrast. While tourists enjoy cocktails on golden beaches, the locals have to deal with a life that is far from the paradise portrayed in glossy travel brochures. The Cuban people are a symbol of perseverance, offering a glimmer of hope and a reminder that the human spirit can endure even the harshest of circumstances. While tourists bask in the sun on pristine beaches, the locals are often left in the shadows. Well, what role does tourism play in all this? Let's dive in. Tourism, Cuba's main revenue source, is a paradox. It introduces essential foreign currency, strengthens local businesses, and generates employment. However, it also encourages a difficult-to-break dependence cycle. Tourism in Cuba is primarily government-controlled. The majority of the profits go to the state, leaving local enterprises and individuals who form the industry's backbone, with a lack of thus. While tourists enjoy their leisure, locals often struggle with financial hardships. This control also extends to resorts get priority access to supplies, resulting in local market deficiencies. In a country where meeting basic needs is tough, this disparity triggers local resentment. Besides, reliance on tourism makes Cuba vulnerable to external factors such as global economic downturns or pandemics. When the tourist flow decreases, the economy takes a hit. This was pronounced during the recent global pandemic, which led to a sharp decline in tourist visits and a resulting economic crisis. State control over tourism also impacts the tourist experience. Sometimes in a bid to maximize profits, quality might take a hit, resulting in subpar services and amenities. This could discourage return visits, putting additional pressure on the tourism sector. However, Cuba's allure, its colorful history, vibrant culture, and natural beauty, keeps drawing tourists. Provided it's effectively managed, tourism could be Cuba's lifeline, offering a sustainable income source. Tourism paints a picture of prosperity, but the canvas of reality tells a different story. As we navigate this complex issue, we realize that tourism's role in Cuba is multi-layered, with immense potential for positive change. In light of all this, one might wonder, can Cuba be saved from its own disaster of a government? This question echoes across Havana and Varadero, symbolizing the nation's plight. Cuba's fight is a human one. The daily battles of its people are at the forefront. The initial step involves creating an international understanding of Cuba's reality. An island where opulent resorts reside alongside locals grappling for necessities. This stark contrast paints a vivid picture of Cuban society, where citizens contribute to their government, yet receive support. Economic challenges, such as the tourism industry grappling with severe shortages, are becoming apparent. This is the authentic Cuba, a side that is usually overshadowed by the allure of its rich culture and breathtaking landscapes. However, comprehension is merely the first step. The global community needs to take definitive action. Initiatives like humanitarian aid and political pressure can be employed to help mitigate the crisis. International support can provide essentials and advocate for meaningful reforms. Tourists, by opting for responsible tourism practices, can contribute directly to the citizens, giving them a lifeline independent of the government's control. The Cuban people, teeming with spirit and aspirations, are the heartbeat of the country, the catalyst for change. It is up to us to spread awareness about the reality of Cuba, a paradise that is slowly losing its shine to the shadows of governmental control. Let's strive to prevent the sunset on this spectacular island. Let's work together to help Cuba rediscover its lost radiance. Thank you for joining us in this journey. Please like and subscribe.